This page right then, it's the front cover of Dreamcast Magazine issue 10, dated August 2000. Big headline shouts, Half-Life as the world exclusive preview, promising the best game ever, is getting even better for the Dreamcast. Below that, there's mentions for Ready 2 Rumble 2, If 355 Challenge and Virtua Tennis, all with taglines selling them like hotcakes. Slap bang in the middle is a chap with a gas mask and a hefty weapon, definitely ripped straight from Half-Life itself. Top right corner boasts about an exclusive demo disc with 3 playable games. Down at the bottom in smaller print it mentions reviews for Tony Hawk's Skateboarding, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and Deep Fighter alongside Choo Choo Rocket, and something about the Sydney 2000 Olympics. Looks like a packed issue, focusing on the big hitters coming to the Dreamcast. This page showcases the goodies you get with this month's Dreamcast mag, specifically the cover disc which they're calling DreamOn. Kicking things off are 3 awesome playable demos. First up is Super Magnetic Neo, looks like a quirky platformer. Where you're using magnets to get around, they're boasting 4 worlds and over 20 levels in the full game. Next is Wacky Races. Harking back to the cartoon classic, this playable demo gives you a taste of the racing madness with 11 cars, loads of tracks and 4-player action. Finally, for the playable demos, there's Toy Commander, actually bundling 3 demos in one, a summer level, Grand Prix level, and even a Christmas mission. The full game apparently has a massive 50 missions and 35 vehicles. Moving on from the playable demos, the disc also includes a selection of movies, essentially video previews. There's NHL 2K, promising top-notch ice hockey action. Virtua Tennis is featured too, highlighting its graphical prowess, and 4-player mode, setting the stage for its release. Space Channel 5 is in there, showing off its groovy rhythm action and stylish presentation. Due out next month apparently. Lastly, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 gets a look in, focusing on its massive roster of characters and tag team fighting mayhem. So all in all, a decent selection on the cover disc to whet the appetite. This page is the contents page for Dreamcast Magazine, issue 10 from August 2000. It lays out what's inside this month's issue. In the previews section, they're teasing a world-exclusive look at Half-Life on the Dreamcast, big news that is. There's also Virtua Tennis getting a look in, alongside Ready 2 Rumble Boxing, Round 2 and Railroad Tycoon 2. F355 Challenge is previewed, as is Time Stalkers, Aerowings 2, Airstrike, Sydney 2000 marking the upcoming Olympics, and Nightmare Creatures 2. The reviews section covers a bunch of games including Tony Hawk's Skateboarding, Deep Fighter which is an underwater action title, Silver, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Dragon's Blood, Sword of the Berserk, Guts Rage, Gauntlet Legends, and Midway's Greatest Arcade Hits Volume 1 which is a collection of classics. Features this month include Vox Pops, Talent, focusing on legendary skater, Tony Hawk, Thinking and Drinking, Jobs in the Industry, with a producer from Echo the Dolphin, In the Hot Seat, with Resident Evil Code, Veronica's Director, The Big Debate, and a People section. The Dreamcast Owner's Guide includes sections on cheats, challenges, a directory, facts, reader reviews, and websites. The Regulars section lists upfront, back issues, charts, gadgets, letters, and Ask Sega. Finally, Hints and Tips covers Rayman 2, Choo Choo Rocket, Resident Evil Code, Veronica, and a General Help section. There are also smaller mentions for F1 World Grand Prix 2, WWF Royal Rumble, Macon X and Magical Racing Tour. The next page is an advert for the Nomad Soul, boasting it as the ultimate out-of-body experience on the Dreamcast. It's an epic action/adventure game with a distinctly unique element to it. The advert highlights the fact that the soundtrack features original music by David Bowie and Reeves Gabrels, which is pretty cool. You can see a few screenshots and the box art for the game itself, hinting at the surreal and somewhat disturbing atmosphere. This page features a look at Half-Life coming to the Dreamcast. It's previewed as the finest PC game ever made, making its way to the console, and they reckon Steve Owen and presumably the magazine team are quite excited. It mentions it's due out in the autumn, published by Havas, and developed by Gearbox, Captivation and Valve. The preview text talks about how everyone will be blown away by Half-Life on Dreamcast. They reminisce about the original PC release back in '98, and how groundbreaking it was, comparing it to James Bond films, and saying it was better than Zelda and Resident Evil even. They're saying it's a proper honor to have it on the Dreamcast. They mention how Half-Life is a first-person shooter that was compared to the likes of Quake and Doom at the time, but it pushed things further graphically. They seem to think the Dreamcast version is shaping up nicely, and it's going to be a must-have. On the left page, there's some stylized graphical design with Half-Life screenshots integrated in circles. One shows a scientist character, another looks like some action with a weapon, and there's also the iconic lambda symbol. It's definitely building up the anticipation for this one. The next page continues the buzz around Half-Life coming to the Dreamcast, with the bold claim that it's going to be bigger, better, and even more astounding than the PC original. They're really pushing the boat out, asking what's this? A game with a plot? And going on about how it's for folks who are fed up with the usual schoolboy shooter fantasies, and want something with a bit more depth. There are a few screenshots dotted around, one showing soldiers up close, another of a helicopter kicking off in the military zone, and one of Gordon with a scientist, making sure he's behaving himself in what looks like a security checkpoint. The article itself talks about how Half-Life on PC was a proper game changer back in '98, and this Dreamcast version is looking like it's going to be something special. They mention Gearbox Software, Captivation, and Valve all being involved, with Havas Publishing, same as before, and they reckon it's going to be even better than we remember on the PC. They highlight the plot and storytelling, saying it's not just about shooting everything that moves, but it's got a proper narrative that keeps you hooked. They're saying it's going to be out in the autumn, and they clearly think it's going to be a must-have title for the Dreamcast. This page is ramping up the excitement for Half-Life on Dreamcast even further, shouting, "Believe it!" across the top, and listing a whole bunch of review quotes proclaiming it Game of the Year. They're really emphasizing how visually improved this Dreamcast version is, with screenshots showing off beefed-up character models like the alien grunts and security guards, claiming every character's detail has been roughly doubled in size. Randy Pitchford from Gearbox Software is mentioned as saying they are adding a brand new chapter to the game, which is pretty ambitious. There's a little section called the rumor mill hinting at potential delays, but then they quickly move on to talk about control options, reassuring players they'll have choices in how they play, and aren't being forced into any specific control method. Overall, it's a full-on push to make sure everyone knows Half-Life on Dreamcast is going to be a massive deal. The Dreamcast version of Half-Life features an exclusive new chapter, Guard Duty, where players control Barney, the security guard. This chapter offers a unique perspective on the original game's events, designed to run concurrently, with crossover moments. Screenshots reveal Barney in a shooting range, playing into police stereotypes, and scenes from Barney's perspective as he interacts with Gordon Freeman and other scientists. Guard Duty aims to fill narrative gaps and provide meaningful content, rather than just a tacked-on extra. Gearbox emphasized story integration, ensuring the plot elements aligned with the original Half-Life. They aimed to deliver the best first-person shooter on the console with improved visuals. This page is an advert section titled Seriously Addictive. It's pushing 4 Dreamcast games. First up, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. They're calling it a legendary arcade conversion, packed with characters and tag team action. Next is Silver, an action RPG where you play as David battling the evil tyrant Silver. Then there's Dragon's Blood, a sword-fighting adventure set in a fantasy world. And lastly, Wacky Races for some chaotic kart racing based on the cartoon. All these games are available to buy online from HMV and Top Dog for Games. The next page is an advert for Wacky Races on the Dreamcast. It features Penelope Pitstop in her pink car and Muttley and Dastardly up in the corner causing trouble as usual. There's a message to be kind and respectful to other drivers, a bit ironic given the cartoon. You can see some screenshots of the game in action and the game box itself too. Looks like a bit of kart racing fun for the Dreamcast crowd. This page offers a mix of Dreamcast news. Konami's International Track and Field is previewed, bringing arcade-style Olympic events with motion-captured athletes and 4-player competition. Rumors suggest Epic's Unreal Tournament might be coming to the Dreamcast, potentially rivaling Quake 2 iArena for multiplayer dominance. Sega's restructuring its development teams, renaming internal groups, and seeing Shirohiko Majiri step down. Finally, an analysis column discusses the post-E3 landscape, highlighting the arrival of International Track and Field, and the potential for future titles like Jet Set Radio Future and Shenmue 2. The author is optimistic about the Dreamcast's future. This page features news about Dreamcast games and events. Sega's Choo Choo Rocket advertising campaign is highlighted, along with a contest offering prizes for 4-Wheel Thunder. The main event is the Are You the Greatest? Soul Calibur Tournament, a UK-wide competition in partnership with Gameplay and the Daily Mirror. Qualifiers will be held in 5 cities, culminating in a grand final at the London Live 2000 exhibition, with substantial prize money. Other news includes updates on European Dreamcast football results, discussions of the South Park game, and release dates for SEGA Worldwide Soccer 2001, Rayman 2, and Rayman 3. Budget Game Scoop reveals price reductions on classics like Sonic Adventure and Soul Calibur. The Soul Calibur tournament details the rules, including best-of-3 matches and default settings. Qualifying rounds begin August 5 in Cardiff, and the finals are in London, September 9. The Dreamcast is getting a boost with new arcade conversions, thanks to Sega's Naomi Tech. Upcoming titles include rhythm games like Cracking DJ, Shayoko and Tambourine, and Samba de Amigo, alongside action titles such as Sega Strike Fighter and NASCAR Rubbing Racing. The Neo Geo Pocket Color faces challenges as Japanese developers seemingly abandon it due to poor sales and limited software. Sega partners with Motorola to develop games for mobile phones, featuring popular mascots like Sonic the Hedgehog. This move aims to capitalize on the growing mobile market and create a new revenue stream. Finally, Reader's top 10 games include Shenmue, Metropolis Street Racer, and Black and White as the top 3, followed by popular titles such as Half-Life and Jet Set Radio. The arcade version of Star Wars Racer is praised for its fast-paced gameplay, requiring quick reflexes. A legal dispute is brewing in the football gaming world regarding the unauthorized use of footballers' names and likenesses. In game news, Hydrasport Racing is looking promising. Metropolis Street Racer's release is delayed, while 18-wheeler American Pro Trucker is still planned. Sega sponsors a beach football tournament. Namco's puzzle game, Panic Park, is also highlighted. Acclaim has cancelled Armada. Finally, Aussie developers have created a Dreamcast port of the original Quake, purely as a technical challenge, though it won't be released. The Dreamcast Doorstep Challenge in the Upfront section follows the East End Boys as they compare their Nintendo 64s with the Dreamcast. Ali Miller favors Soul Calibur and a better footy game. Angus Light, into film, likes Crazy Taxi. Paul Rayner prefers Virtua Striker 2, and Charlie Tinsley is impressed by Soul Calibur's graphics. All would consider swapping, due to the Dreamcast's advantages. The article highlights the graphical improvements, internet capabilities, and online play with games like Quake 2 iArena. Other games mentioned include Dino Dino Soccer, International Superstar Soccer 98, GoldenEye, NBA 2K, and Choo Choo Rocket. The right-hand side lists back issues from October 1999 to June 2000. Notable games covered include Grand Theft Auto 2, Metropolis Street Racer, Rayman 2, Soul Calibur, Ready to Rumble, Shenmue, Resident Evil Code Veronica, Echo the Dolphin, Tony Hawk Skateboarding, Jet Set Radio, Fur Fighters, and Hydro Thunder. Humvee's Dreamcast charts highlight the console's popularity. The HMV Top 10, led by Echo the Dolphin, features Resident Evil Code Veronica and Four-Wheel Thunder. The broader chart track, Top 20, puts Resident Evil Code Veronica at the top, followed by Rally 2 and MDK2. The playlist section praises key titles, Resident Evil Code Veronica for its atmosphere, Four-Wheel Thunder for its racing action, and Choo Choo Rocket for multiplayer fun. House of the Dead 2 is a classic, and Crazy Taxi offers manic gameplay. NBA 2K receives praise for its smooth gameplay. The article notes a quiet summer release schedule, with these Dreamcast games keeping players engaged. A competition to win the top 10 games and a discount coupon were also being offered, showing HMV's efforts to promote the Dreamcast. The next page showcases a selection of quirky gadgets under the title Toys for Boys and Girls. There's a radio-controlled airship, a rather nifty digital camera called the Sony DSCF 505K, and what they're calling a Spoon S.AM watch, which looks like a rather bulky digital timepiece, with some peculiar secret agent features like storing phone numbers. Then there's a singing fish novelty item, a big mouth Billy Bass, and rather curiously, they feature something called the Orgasmatron, which looks like a head massager. Rounding it off with a bit of British humour, they've included chunky sausages, rainbow trout, and halloumi cheese under an Eat This banner, perhaps as a nod to slightly less technological gadgets. Money to Burn examines the Ferrari F355 challenge on Dreamcast. The page features interviews with gamers, comparing the game to real-life Ferrari driving experiences. Interviewees, ranging from racing drivers to those who have driven real Ferraris, offer their opinions. Lee praises the game's realism, and would choose Spa-Francorchamps for a real drive. Others like Dan Ascanio, Adrian and Martin echo the sentiment, emphasizing the game's accurate handling and visual appeal. They suggest real-world driving locations, like Nürburgring, Monte Carlo, Melbourne, and northern Italy. The general consensus is that the game offers a credible, enjoyable driving experience, capturing the essence of a Ferrari, particularly given the limitations of the Dreamcast. The next page features an article called Taking the Chris. It's about Chris Moyles and addresses accusations that he's biased towards Dreamcast games and always gives them positive reviews. They seem to be jokingly leaning into this, suggesting they're keeping a close eye on his scores. The article mentions a few games he's reviewed. Apparently he gave Echo the Dolphin a 9/10, which some might think is generous, and Official Dreamcast Magazine a 9/10, which is a bit cheeky, isn't it? He also reviewed Fur Fighters, mentioning a flaw in the AI, and docking it a point for that, so he's not totally soft. There's mention of him being given time with games like Choo Choo Rocket and Metropolis Street Racer before release, suggesting he gets early access for reviews. At the bottom there's a quote from Chris where he says, "I've been playing Soul Calibur a lot, and Toy Commander, which is exactly the sort of kiddies game that I love." Sounds like he's having a bit of fun with it all, and maybe poking fun at himself a bit too. This page showcases two adverts. On the left we've got a spread for Bump and Grind, with Tony Hawk bragging about being the most successful skateboarder in history, and that his game is now on Dreamcast. There's a quote from him too, "I never mastered the holy shit grind." On the right side is an advert for the game Silver. It's described as an explosive mix of arcade action and role-playing adventure. They are pushing the features like 27 quests, 7 huge worlds, hundreds of locations, control of up to 5 characters, real-time combat, and 75 enemy types. You get a glimpse of the game with a few screenshots, and a rather intense-looking character dominates the bottom half of the advert. Silver it is then. This page presents a couple of magazine covers here. On the left it's Hot Dog the New Movie magazine, starring Cameron Diaz. Looks like they've got an interview and poster inside. They're also teasing a Bruce Willis piece called Must Die Harder, referencing Die Hard I'd Wager, and something about Carlito's Way. Bit of a lurid headline there, about a porno murder trial, and mentioning DVD players. Then name-dropping Mel Gibson, Tracy Lords, Pitch Black, and John Woo, movie stars and films of the time. On the right it's another Hot Dog magazine. This one is Pinups, issue 2. They're promising Hollywood pinups free inside, with actresses Sandra Bullock, Kim Basinger, Bo Derek, Jennifer Lopez, Liv Tyler, Farrah Fawcett, and lots more. So yeah, movie magazines, nothing to do with the Dreamcast specifically on this page, but likely aiming for a similar lad magazine demographic perhaps. The next page is a preview of Virtua Tennis, and it's being touted as having the potential to be a must-have. It's promising to bring that arcade experience home, with 4-player support, new modes, and amazing graphics. Coming out in September, it's developed by SEGA AM3, published by SEGA. They're raving about the graphics, the court detail, and player models are supposed to be absolutely spot on. SEGA are highlighting their motion capture tech, saying they used real players to get realistic animations. There's even a section about officials reacting, which is a novel touch. It name-drops players like Anna Kournikova, Carlos Moya, Henman, Pioline and Kafelnikov, so plenty of tennis stars are featured. They're clearly aiming to build on the arcade success of Virtua Tennis and take it even further on the Dreamcast. This preview highlights Virtua Tennis's arcade-style gameplay, emphasizing rallies and player positioning with realistic player behaviors. Motion capture is a key feature, bringing personality to animations and celebrations. Training and reward systems are included for player progression. The game features a world circuit mode where players travel the globe, alongside modes like doubles and trial shots. Strategic elements like position setting for doubles are also included. Character selection allows you to choose players with unique strengths and moods that influence their gameplay. The graphics are improved, and the game boasts 4-player doubles, promising excellent multiplayer action. Expected to release in the UK around September, Virtua Tennis aims to be a must-have title. This page features a couple of previews for upcoming Dreamcast titles. First up is Ready 2 Rumble Boxing, Round 2, and it seems they've added some new characters including Joey T. Midway and Lulu Valentine. Graphically it's looking sharper, and they've included new features like Rumble Flurries and training modes. That one is expected in November. Next is Railroad Tycoon 2, set for release in September. This one's all about building your railway empire, but now in 3D graphics with that traditional isometric perspective. Developed by Tremor Entertainment and published by Take-Two, it's shaping up to be a solid strategy title for the Dreamcast, focusing on managing routes, finances, and outmaneuvering rival companies to build the most profitable railway. The next page dives into a preview of F355 Challenge. Yu Suzuki, the legend himself, is behind this one, and Ed Lomas from the magazine is chatting with him about it. Apparently, this is based on the proper sit-down arcade cabinet, aiming for a really authentic Ferrari F355 driving experience. They're really pushing the realism angle, saying it's so accurate that real drivers are using it for training, which is quite something. The screenshots show off the in-car view and the graphics, which look pretty sharp. It seems they've managed to capture the intensity of driving a Ferrari. The article mentions they're adding some extra bits for the Dreamcast version, like split-screen multiplayer, online play, and even car customization, which weren't in the original arcade game. Sounds like they're trying to make it the definitive version for home consoles. This page features a double bill of game previews and reviews. On the left, there's a look at Time Stalkers. It's pitched as an RPG in the style of classic games, following a chap called Sword, who's been yanked through time and has to save the day. It sounds like your typical role-playing fare, with dungeons to explore, monsters to bash, and items to collect. The screenshots show some in-game action and characters like a sheep chap called Mutton, and a mysterious woman named Dr. Anna. They're boasting about lavish levels and impressive effects, which in Dreamcast terms usually means a decent-looking action RPG. Flipping over to the right, the page reviews Aerowings 2, Airstrike. Dan Trent is the reviewer, and he seems quite taken with it, giving it a solid 8 out of 10. It's described as a flight combat game, and they reckon it's a proper looker, very nicely modelled aircraft and all that. Gameplay-wise, it sounds like you're doing a lot of formation flying and then engaging in aerial dogfights. They mention the game's quite challenging, especially if you're aiming for top marks, but ultimately rewarding. The screenshots show some in-game action with jets and targets. It seems like a decent air combat sim for the Dreamcast. This page offers a preview of Sydney 2000, the official game of the Sydney Olympics. Developed by Attention to Detail and published by Eidos, this one's aiming for realism, boasting authentic television coverage and motion-captured athletes. They're really pushing the boat out with over 600 cameras to capture the action. It sounds like they're going for depth, with an in-depth single-player game and unique athlete models. They've opted for a hardcore 12 events, mentioning the 100-meter sprint, hurdles, hammer, and a load more, including kayaking, which they point out hasn't been in games before. Nigel Collier from Attention to Detail is quoted saying they wanted to capture the classic events, and some new ones too, aiming for a realistic and fun experience. There are screenshots showing off various events like running, kayaking and high jump, all looking fairly decent for the time. Commentary is mentioned too, with Steve Ryder apparently involved, aiming for that true TV presentation style. It sounds like they're really trying to nail the feel of the Olympics in video game form. Sydney 2000 emphasizes rhythmic gameplay, moving away from button mashing. The game, slated for September, uses motion capture from athletes like Colin Jackson. It features an Olympic mode, single-player career, and a virtual gym. Nightmare Creatures 2 is a gruesome hack-and-slash game with a dark, moody atmosphere, due out in August. Developed by Callisto and published by Konami, it's a spiritual successor to Zombie Revenge. Players battle hordes of creatures using weapons and spells, with Dr. Adam Crowley returning. The game, with a Marilyn Manson aesthetic, includes puzzle elements, a third-person perspective, and a virtual gym. This page showcases previews for a couple of Dreamcast titles. First up is F1 World Grand Prix 2, sequel to the original. Seems like they've listened to feedback and are polishing up the formula, aiming for a slicker experience with revised handling and sharper graphics. They've crammed in all the 1999 season events too. Dan Trent, the project manager, mentions in the interview that they've been working on refining the game, smoothing things out and adding more detail, especially to the car models and environments. They're aiming for a more polished feel, which is always welcome. It's due out in September from Video System. Then we have WWF Royal Rumble. Now this looks like a proper wrestling game, boasting a massive roster of over 20 WWF superstars, including Rock, Triple H and even Vince McMahon. They're banging on about improved graphics and motion capture, and reckon it's less about button bashing and more about timing and strategy. Ed Lomas from COS Ed Lomas is quoted, praising the wrestling action. It sounds like they're really trying to capture the atmosphere of a Royal Rumble event, with lots of wrestlers in the ring and backstage areas to explore. This one is slated for October. published by THQ, and developed by Ukes. The next page features previews for two very different games. First up is Maken X, which is a first-person sword-fighting game, quite unusual for the Dreamcast. Apparently it's all about switching between characters. They call it brainjacking, which sounds like an interesting mechanic. It's hand-to-hand combat, no guns, and they're promising a proper in-depth storyline. The cutscenes are described as looking like low-budget Japanese cartoons, but the in-game action looks quite stylish with swords and taser batons. They're emphasizing tactical combat rather than button mashing, which is a plus. It sounds like there are multiple endings, and you can change characters throughout the game. They're aiming for an August release, with a review in the next issue of the magazine, so we'll have to wait and see how it pans out. Then there's Walt Disney World Quest Magical Racing Tour. This is a kart racer, very much in the style of Super Mario Kart, set in Disney World. You race around various Disney locations, collect coins to upgrade your kart, that sort of thing. Sounds very family-friendly and easy to pick up. They mention the graphics are colorful and almost PlayStation-like, and it's got Disney tunes playing in the background. Again, this one is slated for release around the same time, early August, with a review coming in the next issue. Hakuna Matata, they finish off with, so you get the idea, light-hearted fun. This page is an advert for Dreamcast Online gaming in Europe, bit of a cheeky one this, with the Show the Continentals Who's the Daddy slogan and come on let's do the Euros. They're pushing the fact that online console gaming has finally arrived on the Dreamcast over here. Apparently, if you buy a new Dreamcast they'll even sling in a free copy of Choo Choo Rocket to get you started online. They mention Dream Arena as the place to go for online play, their exclusive website. It's all about bragging rights over those Europeans, you see. Very Sega, that. This issue's reviews, alongside an advertisement for Maxim Online, cover a variety of Dreamcast games. The review section, introduced with a summer-themed sentiment, features titles like Deep Fighter, 70%, Dragon's Blood, 80%, Gauntlet Legends, 84%, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, 76%, Midway's Greatest Arcade Hits Volume 1, 87%, Silver, 74%, Sword of the Berserk, Guts Rage, 83%, and Tony Hawk's Skateboarding, 64%. Reviewer Ed Lomas expresses some summer-related complaints and praises Marvel vs. Capcom 2's fighting engine, while describing Tony Hawk's Skateboarding's challenging nature. He also highlights Sword of the Berserk, suggesting it's a standout title. The page concludes with a rating guide, explaining the magazine's scoring system. Nivok. This page is all about Tony Hawk's Skateboarding for the Dreamcast. It's a double-page spread, with the right-hand side dominated by a big title proclaiming Tony Hawk's Skateboarding. The text underneath boasts that the best PlayStation game of '99 has arrived on the Dreamcast looking even better, and that Alex Hutala is putting his thumbs to the test to prove how hardcore it is. It goes on to explain if you've somehow never heard of Tony Hawk, he's a massive name in skateboarding. The text talks up the game, saying it's simple to pick up but lets you perform all sorts of tricks, and highlights that it's based on the best course design ever seen in a video game. Tamori. On the left side of the page, there's a really dynamic black and white photo. It's like a sequence shot showing a skateboarder in midair, pulling off a trick. You can see multiple stages of the jump all blended together, which really captures the movement. It's a great visual representation of the skateboarding action they are talking about in the review. This review hails Tony Hawk's Skateboarding as a must-play game, praising its engaging gameplay that cleverly integrates objectives within levels, such as collecting videotapes and completing challenges like Skate. The review highlights the accessible controls and significant depth, encouraging players to master trick combinations. While some levels present a challenge in finding everything, the experience remains enjoyable. The game's excellent control system allows for impressive moves, including Madonna's and Japan Air's, showcased in accompanying screenshots. The review emphasizes the game's progression, unlocking new content. Producer Jeff Barnhart notes the Dreamcast version replicates the original PlayStation gameplay, enhancing graphics and frame rates. He also offers a glimpse into his gaming preferences. The review concludes by underscoring the near-perfect gameplay and plenty of longevity. This page continues the review for Tony Hawk's Skateboarding, praising its design where objectives are cleverly integrated into levels, such as collecting hidden videotapes. The review emphasizes the satisfying control system that rewards practice and experimentation, leading to impressive skateboarding feats. It acknowledges that locating all collectibles can be a bit challenging, but overall, the game offers near-perfect gameplay and plenty to keep you playing. The review box proclaims it the best skateboarding game ever, by a mile, highlighting beautiful level design, great control system, and long-lasting challenge as uppers, while still looks like a PlayStation game, and repetitive challenges are noted as downers. The review gives it a very good rating of 8 out of 10. The price is listed at £39.99, published by Crave and developed by Treyarch. On the right side of the page, there's a colourful advert for Gauntlet Legends, boasting action and relaxin' multiplayer fun in the sun. It highlights that it is a follow-up to the arcade smash hit Gauntlet, offering 36 levels and subquests, and 9 playable characters, including 4 classic arcade characters. The advert features a scantily clad woman lounging on a beach, suggesting a lighter, more relaxed tone for this Gauntlet installment, on Dreamcast and PlayStation. This page features a review for Deep Fighter on the Dreamcast, and it sounds like a bit of an odd one, described as trying to be Tomb Raider or a space action game, but stuck underwater. Apparently you're up against jellyfish and giant pond flies, which does sound a bit strange. It's set in a future where you're piloting a mini-sub, exploring underwater environments to stop a volcanic eruption. The reviewer seems a bit on the fence, mentioning it can be tedious, especially the resource collection, but also highlights the sheer number of missions, around 50, and some puzzle elements. Looking at the screenshots, the graphics seem decent enough, showing off the subs and some of the underwater beasties you'll be facing. There's also a Speak Out section with Bob Churchill from Criterion Studios, where he mentions they were aiming for variety with over 40 missions, focusing on combat and exploration, taking inspiration from different game genres. The next page continues the Deep Fighter review. It seems they reckon it's a bit of a mixed bag, saying it's like Tomb Raider underwater but not quite nailing it. They mention you're collecting thorium with a vacuum cleaner, which sounds a bit tedious if you ask me, but then they also say there's plenty of marine life and some puzzle bits. They do point out that Criterion, the developers, were aiming for variety and took inspiration from different genres, trying to mix combat and exploration across loads of missions. The verdict box is a bit lukewarm, saying, "I'd like to be under the sea, but I'd rather be doing less housework mostly." They give it a 6 out of 10, calling it pretty good, praising the variety of missions and clever use of depth boost, but knocking it for being tedious at times. On the right-hand side, there's a big advert for barrysworld.com, shouting, "For blastards everywhere," with a cheeky smiley face. It's for their online gaming service, plugging themselves as the dedicated online service for serious gamers. Remember Barry's World? They were everywhere back then. Silver, an RPG for the Dreamcast, received a scathing review, calling it too dull, and giving it a 4/10 rating. The game, an isometric RPG similar to Diablo, features detailed backgrounds but is criticized for its repetitive gameplay and poor combat. The review highlights a standard RPG plot, with an evil emperor and kidnapped women. Though the control method and background detail were praised, the game is slammed for being dull, having difficult combat, and strange camera angles. Originally a PC game, Silver's Dreamcast version is considered a below-average RPG that will likely bore players quickly. The reviewer recommends avoiding the game, citing a slow pace and a lack of challenge despite its shortcomings. Priced at £39.99, it appears to be a poor investment. The next page features a review of Marvel vs. Capcom 2, New Age of Heroes, penned by Steve Full-James. He reckons this fighter is going to have its ardent fans, and notes how even basic moves unleash the pyrotechnics, which sounds promising. The main image shows Hulk laying down a fully charged super attack on Marrow, filling the screen with explosions, showcasing the over-the-top action. Full-James highlights the sheer spectacle of the game, and its frenetic pace. He mentions the absolutely massive roster of 56 characters, pulled from both Marvel and Capcom universes, giving examples like Ryu, Sakura, Guile, Jill Valentine from Resident Evil, and Strider Hiryu. Apparently, Capcom went all out and threw in pretty much everyone they could. The review also touches on the Taki Tag tournament control system, which is described as a 6-button setup for modern standards, with easier special moves and assists. There's also a Speak Out box featuring Capcom Europe's Colin Grant, sharing his thoughts on the game. Alongside the main screenshot, there are smaller images showing off more of the action, Chun-Li and Sakura exchanging kicks, Captain America moving so fast he gets a motion blur effect, and Dan Hibiki with a comical horde of monkeys, clearly showcasing the game's varied and sometimes bonkers cast. It seems like a visually explosive and character-packed fighter that will keep fans busy for a good while. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is a fast-paced fighting game where defense takes a back seat. The review emphasizes relentless offensive play, filled with screen-filling special attacks and massive combos. Forget blocking. The focus is on button mashing and launching outrageous attacks. While the 6-button layout simplifies special move execution, the sheer chaos may be initially overwhelming. The game, published by Virgin and developed by Capcom, costs £39.99. Positives include colourful visuals and familiar characters, while the single-player mode's frantic pace and character models on 3D backgrounds are noted downsides. The game receives a 7/10 rating, described as a flashy challenge for fighting game enthusiasts. Featuring a 2-player mode, the game offers various video options and is visually spectacular. Dragon's Blood is a hack-and-slay game set in a medieval fantasy land for the Dreamcast. The game, developed by Treyarch and published by Virgin, allows players to choose between a warrior, GNK, and a magician, HRK, and features a focus on human evolution versus monsters. Gameplay involves challenging combat with basic controls and spellcasting. Visually, the game is reminiscent of Tomb Raider. The review notes some laggy graphics, but highlights interesting AI, lots of action, and original spells. The producer, Scott Barrett, mentions about 15 levels, over 30 characters, and 20+ spells, as well as a good multiplayer mode. Despite these features, the reviewer finds the game not gripping enough to grab non-adventure freaks, giving it a 6/10 and calling it pretty good. The price is £39.99. Soul Reaver is suggested to be a better game. Worker. This review examines Sword of the Berserk, Guts Rage, a game described as a gory, action-packed experience inspired by Resident Evil. The game follows Guts, a lone warrior, and features fast-paced combat with swords and hand cannons. The story involves a village plagued by a zombie-like plant. Gameplay alternates between action and cinematic sequences, including a rage meter for increased power. The review highlights both positive and negative aspects. Positives include an engaging storyline, easy controls, and unlockable secrets, while negatives include repetitiveness, numerous cutscenes, and a lack of gameplay variety. The game receives a 5/10 score, suggesting it's worth renting rather than buying. Information is included for the Dreamcast Game Magazine subscription. This page is a review for Gauntlet Legends, calling it, "Gauntlet was the Elvis of gaming," suggesting it's a big deal moving to 3D. The reviewer, Joe Howard, seems a bit unimpressed, saying 3D may have been too kind to fantasy. He mentions the original top-down 4-player arcade game, and how this new version is updated with 3D graphics and new technology, but perhaps loses some of the original charm. The review talks about choosing from characters like warrior, wizard, archer, dwarf, knight, sorceress, jester or Valkyrie, and going through levels like the Volcano Sebius and the Valley of Fire. It highlights the 4-player cooperative action and the focus on combat and item collection. There's a speak out section with Midway's producer, Metro Mustafa, where he emphasizes the classic gameplay loop and the focus on action, freedom and skill. The review verdict is, "Forget it, it's fantasy but far from fantastic," and gives it an overall 4 out of 10. It says the uppers are giant dragons and monster mashing, but the downers are repetitive gameplay and underwhelming graphics. It took 1 hour to finish the first 4 levels. The next page features a review of Midway's Greatest Arcade Hits Volume 1. This collection is described as bringing back vintage coin-op classics like Defender, Joust, Robotron, and Bubbles to the Dreamcast. The reviewer seems to be a bit nostalgic, mentioning how these games were revolutionary back in the day. The screenshots show Defender with the caption noting its fame and questioning if it still holds up. Bubbles being described as the most house-proud game ever made, Joust with the caption, "Flap, flap, flappy flap," and Robotron noted as a cocktail of asteroids and space invaders. There's a verdict box that says if you remember the game's first time round, cool. If not, avoid. The review highlights uppers as classic games perfectly emulated, and plenty of options, with interviews with developers and rare production artwork. Downers are listed as tiny pixels causing headaches, color clash and interviews being 5 years old and no analog support. The overall rating is a poor 3 out of 10. It says, "Good ideas never die. Robotron returned as Smash TV." It also mentions the price is £24.99, publisher is Midway, and developer is Digital Eclipse. This page is an advert from Gameplay showcasing their extended sale on Dreamcast games and hardware. They're pushing Dreamcast consoles for £29.99 or less while stocks last. There's a big focus on hardware bundles, including the Dreamcast console itself bundled with the Wafer Striker game and a SCART cable, all for £249.99. Though that price seems a bit off, probably a typo as it should likely be £49.99. They're also advertising a range of accessories like official keyboards, visual memory units, arcade sticks, steering wheels, jump packs, VGA boxes, SCART cables and extender cables. Games are being sold off cheaply too. The right side of the page is packed with a massive list of Dreamcast games for sale, with prices ranging mostly from £19.99 to £39.99, covering pretty much every genre you can think of. You've got racers like Sega Rally 2 and Sonic Adventure, beat-em-ups like Dynamite Cop, shooters like House of the Dead 2, sports games like NFL Blitz 2000 and Virtua Striker 2, and many more obscure titles like Ill Bleed, MDK2, and even Zombie Revenge. It's a real treasure trove of titles there, showing just how many great games the Dreamcast had. They are also advertising Neo Geo Pocket Color consoles and games. Warn you. Gameplay are emphasizing their price promise, choice, quality, and service, and offering a money-back guarantee and secure ordering. It's a real blast from the past seeing all these classic Dreamcast games listed at these prices. This page is the reviews roundup and kicks off with Up for Discussion, which highlights 4 recent Dreamcast releases. First up is Choo Choo Rocket. That bonkers puzzle game where you're guiding mice around with arrows. Then there's Fur Fighters, a rather quirky action game with cute animals packing some serious firepower. Next on the list is NHL 2K, the hockey sim, looking pretty sharp in the screenshot. And rounding it off is Wacky Races, bringing the cartoon classic to life in a racing game. The rest of the page is titled Drinking, and it seems to be a review of a bar called The Pool in East London. It mentions its address at 104 Curtain Road, and that it's open until 11:30 p.m. on weekdays and late at weekends. They reckon it's a decent spot with good music and a relaxed vibe, split over 2 floors, perfect for a bit of downtime after a gaming session. This page continues the reviews roundup, diving into those Dreamcast games a bit more. Starting with NHL 2K, it seems they reckon it's a proper improvement, praising the graphics and gameplay. They mention it's much smoother than previous hockey games, and the AI is better. Moving on to Choo Choo Rocket. They're all buzzing about it being genuine online fun, simple to pick up but addictive, and it seems Dreamcast Europe had a hand in getting it out. They highlight how you can play it defensively, or go all-out attack. Next up is Wacky Races, and the fellas are impressed with the graphics capturing the cartoon vibe, and reckon it's got good sounds too. They say it's exciting to race and you can unlock a load of things, even if the racing itself isn't super complex. Finally, for Fur Fighters, the talk is that it's got that N64 game feel, like it was developed for that and then ported over, mixing cute characters with extreme violence and puzzle elements. They even mention a Fluff Munch combo, whatever that is, and seem impressed with the level design. This article, part of the Jobs in the Industry series, profiles the role of a games producer, specifically highlighting their importance in bringing games like those for the Sega Dreamcast to market. A producer oversees a game's entire production, from concept to completion, ensuring it stays on schedule and within budget. The role demands strong communication and organizational skills, alongside a passion for games and a creative mindset. The production process involves several stages: concept, first playable, alpha, mold, and beta, each crucial for evaluating and refining the game. Producers work closely with developers throughout these stages, making key decisions and managing potential issues. The job offers good career progression and earning potential, with salaries varying based on experience. Ultimately, the producer is responsible for the final product, and the article emphasizes the immense satisfaction of seeing a finished game enjoyed by the public, despite the inherent stress. This text examines the role of game producers, specifically focusing on their work during the Dreamcast era, using interviews with Dave Multy, Olivier Raffard, and Troy Horton. The producers share common experiences, the job's rewarding nature, the importance of problem solving, and the need for strong communication and teamwork. A key highlight is Echo the Dolphin, Defender of the Future, illustrating a producer's oversight from early concept to completion, navigating development challenges, and publisher-developer collaboration. Aspiring producers are advised to research and showcase their skills. The producer role is ultimately characterized as demanding but fulfilling, blending management and creativity with the pressure of delivering a final product, offering both exciting opportunities like travel and challenges like long hours. Utisa. Shinji Mikami, the driving force behind the Resident Evil series, is interviewed about his work. He discusses his career progression from Nintendo consoles to the creation of the iconic survival horror franchise. The interview touches on potential multiplayer modes, dismissed for now, character favorites like Jill Valentine, and the development process for games on the Dreamcast, including Code Veronica. Mikami defends the series' horror elements, and confirms more Resident Evil games are planned. He also reveals a cancelled Resident Evil 1.5. Beyond Resident Evil, the interview highlights his admiration for Steven Spielberg and the game family circuit. He expresses his love for monster-themed games and creating suspense, also citing Nintendo as a developer he admires. A gameography showcases his titles, including Resident Evil, Dino Crisis, and others. Screenshots illustrate the evolution of his work, and a Dino Crisis Dreamcast port is confirmed. The interview provides insights into the mind of a key figure in gaming. This page is the third and final part of a walkthrough for Rayman 2, in the Hints and Tips section. Rayman 2, they say, is a proper colourful platformer and a toughie in places. Ubisoft really nailed it. It's addressing players who are stuck and can't find all the crystals, with Matt Diamond providing the level-by-level guide here. Cake. The walkthrough covers 4 levels. The Precipice with levels 1, 2 and 3, advising on getting past the first level by shooting enemies from under bridges, navigating the 5 cages, and using the swing bridge, advising to wait for it to crash, typical Rayman. Then levels 2 and 3 deal with using the sinking tower and helicopter sections. The top of the world, levels 4 and 5, where you have to use the blue pirate charge and barrel-clad pirates. Then, the Sanctuary of Rock and Lava, levels 6 and 7, which mentions special items like the third mask, and the importance of having at least 475 lums. Finally, beneath the Sanctuary of Rock and Lava levels 8 and 9, focusing on silver lums and using fly power to get through lava sections, along with platforming tips to avoid falling into the lava. Each level section includes screenshots to help you along. In Rayman 2, the Tomb of the Ancients features 3 levels with switch activation, spider plant enemies, and floating kegs for water crossings. Level 2 introduces zombie chickens and piranhas. Level 3 involves pirate puppets and Clark. The Iron Mountains requires laser deactivation and piranha pond navigation in Level 1. Level 2 features mechanical walkers, and Level 3 involves using the chasm interior. The prison ship levels 1 and 2 involve sliding, switch shooting, and guard patrols. Level 3 focuses on a metal footbridge and pirate combat. Level 4 involves platforming to find Glowbox kids, for Yukiki. Finally, the Crow's Nest challenges players to destroy a Razorbeard-controlled robot with well-timed shots, while also collecting a glow ball in a tight space. This page is a cracking guide for Choo Choo Rocket, Dawn, the frantic puzzle game on the Dreamcast. It's all about getting online and playing with others, which was a real novelty back then, showing you how to navigate the menus using your Dreamcast modem. They point out you need to be registered online and use the network option in 14-player mode. There's a section on battle mode hints, suggesting you take it easy as it's a chaotic game. Key tips include using the Kapu Kapu to your advantage, especially when launching from rockets, focusing on both Choo-Choos and Kapu Kapus rather than just one, and being aware of how walls and arrows can be used strategically. They also mention network lag being a factor, and to aim slightly ahead of opponents. Crucially, it warns that even if you're doing well, it can all go wrong right at the end. Oh, and taunting with the trigger buttons is encouraged, naturally. Then there's a secret section revealing how to unlock extra content. Completing the stage challenge unlocks the normal Choo-Choos to become Kale from Sonic Adventure, a nice touch for Sega fans. Beating the puzzle mode on normal unlocks hard mode, and completing special unlocks mania mode, and then special mania unlocks the peons from Nights into Dreams. As a replacement Choo-Choo, they also hint at even more characters being downloadable from the Choo Choo Rocket homepage. The screenshots nicely illustrate the game in action, showing the typical colourful and hectic gameplay. The next page is another cracking guide, this time for Resident Evil Code Veronica, Part 2 of the Player's Guide. It looks like it's taking you through different areas of the game. Starting with the airport, it tells you to take out zombies and get to the plane, mentioning a lever, bridge, and using stairs. There's a bit about the TO-78 Tyrant fight, advising grenades and explosive arrows, and suggesting dodging to the side to avoid him. And Uther. Moving on to the Antarctic base, it starts by saying, to search cabinets for a rifle and detonator, and then to use the detonator on a dead guy. They mention getting power back on in a room, moving a picture, and restoring power. Then it covers the B.W gas room, where you need to put in a barcode sticker and use 2 crates to reach something. It also mentions getting the gas mask, Cheshire. The guide continues through areas labeled Ant B1F to B6F, detailing steps to navigate these locations. In B6F, for example, it talks about getting electricity on, using a valve, and finding a paperweight and a file to get the extinguisher from a box. The guide uses maps of each area and screenshots to illustrate the walkthrough, which is really helpful. This page continues the hints and tips guide for Resident Evil, Code Veronica, focusing on different areas with maps and screenshots to help players navigate. It starts in the Antarctic base, advising players to push a button by a small window, leading to a shadow and a card. Then moves on to the military training facility, detailing how to access the rest of the training facility. The guide moves through map sections labeled MTF2F, MTF1F, MTFB1F, MTFB2F, and MTFB3F, providing specific instructions for each area, including picking up items like side pack reloads, chemical storage, eagle plate, and uses. It also highlights encounters with enemies like the Albinoid boss in MTFB1F, advising on tactics to defeat it. The guide ends with a next month teaser, promising the final part of the walkthrough and the dramatic finale, hinting at hidden secrets to be revealed. This page provides solutions and cheats for various games. The Help section addresses player queries: Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, Block Puzzle, Tomb Raider, The Last Revelation, Motorbike Nitrous, Rayman 2, Temple of Horus Puzzle and Lum Collection, MDK2, Hidden Bonus Rooms, Sega Rally 2, Peugeot 106 Unlock, and the Nomad Soul, Security Headquarters Archives. The Cheats section offers button-based codes for several titles: 4-Wheel Thunder, Unlock All, Grand Theft Auto 2, Unlock All, Max Cash, NFL Blitz 2000 Race Car Mode, and 2K2 Attribute Modifiers, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Character Unlocks via Music Test, Red Dog, Argonauts Blaster content unlocks based on level progression, and MDK2, various gameplay modifications. This page sets out the monthly challenges for Dreamcast owners. They're testing driving skills in Crazy Taxi with crazy dashes, fighting prowess in Soul Calibur arcade mode focusing on ringouts, and platforming finesse in Rayman 2 with cobweb trampolines. The results are in from previous challenges for Crazy Taxi, Sega Rally 2, and Sonic Adventure, listing the top scorers. There's also a Cybernet mail-order games advert, and another for Cheats Unlimited if you're stuck. Finally, UK Dreamcast Games is advertising a massive selection of games at good prices. This games directory summarizes Dreamcast game reviews. 4-Wheel Thunder is a good racer. Buggy Heat is uninspired. Crazy Taxi is deep and enjoyable. Aerowings is stylish. Duster Move 4 is addictive. Deadly Skies is enjoyable. Blue Stinger is a survival horror. Choo Choo Rocket is fun online. Dynamite Cop is a martial arts game. Echo the Dolphin is an adventure game. ECW Hardcore Revolution is disappointing. Evolution has solid RPG gameplay. Fighting Force 2 didn't meet expectations. Fur Fighters is charming. House of the Dead 2 is a good light gun game. Hydro Thunder is a fast-paced racer. F1 World Grand Prix is immersive. Incoming is a shoot 'em up. GTA 2 is a detailed gangster game. The Visual Memory FAQ explains the VMU, its use for saving game data, and its features. It describes its storage capacity, battery, and mini-game capabilities. It also mentions VMU animations, primarily Ghostface themed, downloadable from the PC. This page highlights several Dreamcast games. Notable titles include Jimmy White's 2 Cue Ball, Snooker, MDK2 Quirky Shooter, NBA 2K, Visually Impressive Basketball, and Sega Rally 2, Classic Arcade Racer. Other sports games mentioned include NHL 2K, NBA Showtime, Sega Worldwide Soccer, and NHL Blitz 2000. Fighting games showcased are JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Mortal Kombat Gold, and Psychic Force 2012. Horror fans have Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil Code Veronica to enjoy. Red Dog, Pen Pen, and Shadow Man also appear, offering varying genres. The page also features a FAQ on Dreamcast online functionality, covering topics like web browsing, online costs, and using dial-up. The games directory reviews a variety of Dreamcast titles. Standouts include Soul Calibur, 10 out of 10, and Sonic Adventure and Wacky Races, both 9/10. Several games receive 8/10 scores: Street Fighter II I Double Impact, Street Fighter Alpha 3, Tomb Raider, The Last Revelation, Tech Romancer, Toy Commander, Virtua Striker 2, Rally 2 Expert Edition, and Worms Armageddon. Games scoring 7/10 include Speed Devils, The Nomad Soul, Suzuki All-Star Extreme Racing, Tokyo Highway Challenge, South Park, Chef's Love Shack, Trickstyle, Wafer Striker, Vigilante 8-2, ND Offense, Weetrix Plus, Virtua Fighter 3 TB, and Zombie Revenge. Lower scores went to Slave Zero, 6/10, Snow Surfers, 6/10, Wild Metal, 6/10, T-Off, 5/10, and WWF Attitude, 3/10. The FAQ section covers Dreamcast peripherals and technical aspects, including light guns, TV compatibility, SCART leads, DVD player plans, memory, and accessories. This magazine section features reader reviews and a FAQ about the Dreamcast. Readers rate games like Resident Evil Code, Veronica, 9/10, praising its survival horror elements, and Crazy Taxi, 9/10, for its addictive gameplay and visuals. Toy Commander received 8/10, lauded for its graphics and fun. Tomb Raider, The Last Revelation got 7/10, with the reader enjoying the game but noting camera issues. Red Dog received a middling 5/10. The FAQ covers topics such as grand ROMs, region locking, illegal game copying, and why releases are delayed. It also addresses questions about Naomi arcade hardware, Shenmue's UK release, and FIFA Soccer on the Dreamcast. The section encourages reader participation with a call for information about upcoming releases. This guide explores a variety of movie websites. It begins with sites for obscure films like Black Star and the Carry On franchise. Quirky sites dedicated to specific movies or shows, such as Dr. Daniel's Emergency Room, are highlighted. More serious film resources include the British Film Institute and official websites for films like Chicken Run and Gladiator. General entertainment sites like DreamWorks, Celebrity Find, and Cranky Critic are also featured. Dedicated sites for Star Wars, James Bond, and black comedies cater to specific fan bases. Essential resources, like IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, are mentioned, alongside sites for sports movies, Hollywood news, Moviefone, cult films, and films like The Matrix. Finally, the guide touches on sites focused on bad movies, like Your Stupid Minds, and niche areas like submarine films, U571. This page is a roundtable discussion titled The Big Debate: The Bottom Line, focusing on the Dreamcast's online capabilities and the future of Dreamcast Net. It gathers opinions from a group of ODM readers and SEGA representatives. The people involved are Jason Church from Ford Motor Company, Jim Pride, a European product marketing manager at SEGA Europe, Danny Edgar in sales and marketing, Benjamin Wilbury, a Games Shop employee, and Alison Turner, a marketing director at SEGA Europe. They discuss initial gripes with Dreamcast Net, the reasons for online gaming being popular on PAC including flat-rate internet access, and the cost of phone bills for online gaming. They talk about how SEGA could improve things by bringing in free off-peak and weekend calls. Games mentioned in the context of online play include Soul Calibur, Quake 2i, Half-Life, and Black and White. The discussion touches upon the Dreamcast being an evolutionary machine, the types of games that would work well online, and concerns about ensuring quality between online players. They also briefly mention the zip drive peripheral as a potential solution for downloading content and storage, discussing its cost-effectiveness. SEGA Europe representatives discussed the Dreamcast's online gaming plans. Jim Pride emphasized their commitment to quality online experiences optimized for the modem. Danny Edgar addressed consumer frustrations over game delays, citing titles like Shenmue and Space Channel 5. He attributed delays to localization and quality control. Alison Turner highlighted SEGA's awareness of localization issues, particularly for RPGs, and acknowledged the cost of online gaming. SEGA is exploring ways to improve the value of online services and utilize the VM unit, potentially for downloadable content. Edgar emphasized SEGA's responsiveness to player feedback and its commitment to evolving the platform. The discussion ended with Edgar's competitive spirit, asserting the Dreamcast's potential and the need for more AAA titles to compete with Sony. He also mentioned Resident Evil 2, hinting at possible VM integration. This section of the Dreamcast magazine focuses on reader engagement. The letters segment features positive feedback on the magazine itself and games like Choo Choo Rocket, highlighting its multiplayer fun and the Dreamcast's online capabilities. Readers also praised the console's charm and discussed the potential of the VM. Ask Sega addresses player queries. Sega explains the Dreamcast name's significance, clarifies the keyboard's PC-inspired design, and details ongoing online service improvements. They offer advice on managing game saves and address concerns about corrupted files. Sega confirms English voiceovers and subtitles for UK releases, and confirms the availability of left-handed fishing rod controllers. This page features a humorous article on the left side about a chap who ran the London Marathon dressed as Sonic the Hedgehog, bless him. Apparently it was organised by Sega, and there were folks cheering him on with buckets of water, even though the costume was a bit of a nightmare. Then on the right side, there's a cracking advert for Resident Evil Code Veronica. It's got that creepy vibe with someone playing it late at night. They're really pushing the disturbingly real angle, and rightly so. It was a proper tense game back in the day. The magazine itself gave it a 9 out of 10, calling it an awesome and unrivaled experience on the Dreamcast. You can see some smaller screenshots from the game at the bottom. Looks as good as ever. Capcom and Eidos logos are there too, of course.